They think you're falling apart. But what they don't know is that Allah is rebuilding you in silence. They don't see the version of you He's preparing. The one who doesn't chase, doesn't beg, doesn't break. By the time they realize who you're becoming, they won't even recognize you, but you will finally recognize yourself. Lesson 1. You're not being abandoned, you're being preserved. It's confusing, isn't it, how someone could go from being so close to suddenly distant? How conversations fade, and the people who once made you feel seen now make you feel invisible. And in those quiet moments, you begin to wonder, did I do something wrong? Am I not good enough? Why does everyone leave once I start growing? But I need you to understand this. You are not being abandoned. You are being preserved. There is a difference, a divine difference. You see, abandonment is what the world does. It leaves you empty and broken. But preservation is what Allah does. He takes you away from what could poison your spirit, so He can restore what the world tried to break in you. That silence you're hearing, it's not empty, it's sacred. That distance you're feeling, it's not punishment, it's preparation, because the version of you that Allah is creating, the one who doesn't seek validation from people, the one who rises from sujood with purpose instead of pain, the one who doesn't keep bleeding just to prove they're worth loving. That version can't be built in noise. It can't be built in front of people who don't even see your soul. And it definitely can't be built while you're still attached to the very things Allah is trying to release you from. You keep holding on to what was, but Allah sees what's coming. He knows that if He lets you keep certain people in your life right now, they'll limit the growth He's planning for you. They'll water down the strength He's planting inside you. They'll convince you to stay small just so they can keep feeling big. And so, He removes them, not to hurt you, but to heal you, because your soul is at a stage now where even love can become a distraction if it's not connected to your destiny. You weren't created to remain soft in places that require strength. You weren't created to keep explaining your worth to people who benefit from your silence. And you weren't created to stay wounded just so others feel comfortable around your pain. That version of you, the one who used to apologize for being too much, the one who begged to stay in someone's life, the one who kept saying, "I'm okay," just to avoid being a burden. That version was necessary, but not permanent. Allah used it. He used your heartbreak. He used your loneliness. He used your sleepless nights to start building someone you couldn't have become without being broken first. So don't curse the breaking, don't resent the separation, because the people who were meant to love your soul will never be afraid of your evolution. They'll never shrink you back to who you used to be just to keep access to you. But the ones who left, they were never meant to meet the version of you Allah is writing right now. They were only meant to witness your storm, not your sunrise. And Allah, in His mercy, took them out before they could mislead your next chapter. That's not abandonment. That's divine protection. And if it still hurts, let it. But don't confuse pain with punishment. In fact, this pain might be the holiest thing you've ever felt, because it's the space where Allah finally has your full attention. In this silence, He's speaking. In this isolation, He's working. In this loneliness, He's elevating. You just don't see it yet. But one day, you'll thank Him for every no, every departure, every unanswered dua, every moment where it felt like everyone forgot you. Because that version of you, the one He's still shaping in secret, will walk into a future where you'll finally say, "Now I understand why He took them away." Lesson 2. Your soul is detoxing from people who couldn't love you spiritually. There's a kind of tiredness that sleep can't fix, a heaviness in your chest, not from work, not from effort, but from carrying people who were never meant to be on your journey this long. You didn't notice it at first, because your heart was open, You saw the good in everyone. You believed that love could heal, that loyalty would be returned, that if you stayed soft, you'd be kept safe. But now your soul feels like it's suffocating in rooms that used to feel like home. You're not broken, you're just waking up. And what you're feeling right now, this disconnection, this fatigue, this strange emptiness around people you used to feel close to, it's not failure, it's detox. Your soul is finally rejecting the energy that once felt normal, the energy of people who never truly saw you. They liked your light but not your shadow. They loved your presence but never respected your silence. They stayed when you were giving but disappeared when you started needing. And now that you're growing, they don't know how to love you anymore. Because people who only knew the wounded you don't recognize the healing you. People who were drawn to your softness become uncomfortable when you develop boundaries. And people who were comfortable being worshipped by your attention start pulling away the moment you stop chasing. But this isn't loss, it's clarity. Allah is showing you who never had the spiritual depth to love you beyond your surface. They could hold your hand, but not your faith. They could match your humor, but not your healing. They could hear your words, but never truly listen to your heart. And your soul is finally fed up. It doesn't want empty compliments. It doesn't want temporary attention. It doesn't want to keep bleeding in places that only admire your pain from a distance. Your soul wants to be seen, to be felt, to be understood spiritually. And that's why Allah is removing people. Because this next version of you isn't about popularity. It's about purity. It's not about being accepted. It's about being aligned. You are no longer available for shallow love. The kind of love that flatters your ego but starves your soul. The kind that wants your beauty but not your burden. The kind that leaves when you stop performing and start healing. You are being emptied of attachments that were never meant to fill you. Let that happen. Yes, it feels lonely. Yes, it feels like losing everyone at once. But in truth, you are finally meeting yourself. And the more you meet yourself, the more you'll notice who can't handle the weight of your truth. Because your healed self doesn't perform. It doesn't please. It doesn't beg. It simply becomes dash dash. And becoming is what scares people who benefited from your brokenness. So if you're feeling disconnected, out of place, misunderstood, let it be. That's how you know your soul is cleansing itself. That's how you know Allah is softening your heart in a way no human could. That's how you know your story is shifting. You're no longer meant to fit into the same mold. You were never created to stay in cycles that only feed your loneliness. This ache in your chest. It's your soul fasting from people who couldn't love you spiritually, because now it's hungry for something real. And real love, divine love, always begins with separation. Lesson 3. Allah will make you unrecognizable to those who benefited from your brokenness. You've changed. That's what they say now, isn't it? But they don't say it with love. They say it with distance, with discomfort, with the silent frustration of someone who no longer has access to the version of you they could manipulate, shape, or silence. And they're right. You have changed, but not because you wanted to hurt them. You changed because staying the same was slowly destroying you. Allah saw it. He saw you lowering your voice so others wouldn't feel small. He saw you giving love while begging for crumbs. He saw you pretending to be fine while your soul was screaming for air. And so, He intervened, not with noise, but with shifts. Small ones at first. You stopped texting first. You started saying no. You began enjoying your own company more than being around people who misunderstood your silence. Then bigger shifts came. You started praying with real sincerity. You started speaking less and feeling more. You began to value peace more than people. That's when they started calling you distant. That's when they said you lost your spark. But what they don't understand is that the version of you they miss was never you. It was a survival mask. a version that smiled to avoid conflict. That gave too much to prove worth. That hid its power just to be accepted. But masks were never meant to be permanent, and eventually Allah removes them, even if it breaks every relationship that was built on the performance. So yes, they say you've changed, because you're not crying in front of them anymore. You're not asking for permission to heal. You're not clinging to friendships that feel one-sided. You're not keeping peace at the cost of your own. And they don't like that, because when someone benefits from your brokenness, your healing feels like betrayal. They knew how to love the version of you that stayed quiet, the version that overgave, over-explained, over-apologized, but the version of you that has boundaries, that has vision, that listens to Allah more than opinions. That version terrifies them, because now they can't control you, they can't guilt you, they can't use your softness as a weapon against you. You've become unrecognizable to them, but finally recognizable to yourself. And this is divine. This is exactly what Allah wanted for you, because He doesn't build warriors in comfort. He doesn't write awakenings in applause. He transforms souls in the silence, in the heartbreak, in the rejection. You were never created to be small just so others could feel big. You were never written to stay broken just to keep people close. So let them go. Let them misunderstand you. Let them say you changed. Because if you stayed the same, you would have died in pieces just to keep others whole. Allah doesn't want that for you. He wants resurrection, not survival. And sometimes to resurrect the real you, He has to make you unrecognizable to everyone who loved your wounds more than your healing. So when you feel people pulling away, don't chase. When you feel conversations going silent, don't beg. When they say, "You're different now," just smile and whisper, "Alhamdulillah." That was the point. Lesson 4. Your boundaries are a form of worship, not rebellion. You weren't made to be everyone's cure, but somewhere along the way, you started believing that love meant exhaustion, that pleasing people was part of your purpose, that saying yes to everyone was the same as being kind. And every time you said no, you felt guilty. Every time you chose silence over explaining yourself, you feared they'd call you arrogant. Every time you walked away from disrespect, you were told you were overreacting. But what if I told you this? Your boundaries are not selfish. They're sacred. They are not rebellion. They are remembrance. Because every time you choose peace over pleasing, every time you protect your soul from a conversation that steals your light, every time you walk away instead of arguing for your worth, you are honoring the amana of your own soul, and your soul is not public property. It is entrusted to you by Allah. He gave it to you in perfect form, and He will ask what you did to protect it from the hands, hearts, and environments that tried to reshape it. So no, you're not cold for creating space. You're not heartless for walking away from what dishonors you. You're not arrogant for pulling back when someone keeps crossing a line. You are in ibadah, because sometimes the greatest act of worship is knowing when to leave what dims your light, so you can stay lit enough to keep walking back to Allah. You're not rejecting people, you're reclaiming access. Because not everyone should have the same level of closeness to your heart. Not everyone deserves to hear your rawness. Not everyone is sent by Allah to be part of your softness. Some are sent to test it. And when they fail that test, your job isn't to fix them. Your job is to guard the soul they couldn't handle. Let them say you're too distant. Let them call you changed. Let them say you've become too much or too quiet. You're no longer living in guilt. You're living in intentional mercy, because your worship isn't just found in sujood, it's found in the decisions you make for His sake, even if they cost you relationships. So when you say no, say it with peace. When you walk away, walk with dhikr on your lips. And when they try to make you feel guilty for having a boundary, remind yourself, I am not here to be understood by everyone. I am here to be faithful to the one who already knows what my silence is protecting. Lesson 5. This isolation isn't silence. It's a divine extraction. You're not just isolated, you're being extracted, pulled out of places that were molding you into someone you were never written to be, pulled away from voices that were too loud for your soul to speak, pulled out of rhythms that kept you so busy, you forgot who you really are. This isn't just silence, it's sacred surgery. Your world didn't go quiet because you needed rest. It went quiet because you needed truth. And truth, real, raw, soul-wrenching truth, doesn't come in the noise. It comes when Allah isolates you enough that there's no one else left to distract you from yourself. You think you miss them. You think you're craving connection. But what your soul is really starving for is honesty with your pain, with your patterns, with Allah. Because the people who once filled your days were sometimes the same ones who prevented your awakening. They praised the version of you that stayed asleep. They called it loyalty when you sacrificed your light just to be accepted. They called it kindness when you let yourself bleed silently so others could feel whole. But now Allah has pulled you out, not just from people, from programming, from the identity you built around being needed, from the mask you wore so you wouldn't be left out, from the dreams you chased that were never even yours, just echoes of what others wanted for you. So yes, it feels empty. Yes, it feels quiet. Yes, it feels like nobody understands you anymore. But here's what you don't see yet. This isn't loneliness, it's sacred alignment. Allah has detached you so He can reintroduce you to yourself. And the deeper this isolation feels, the more transformation it's carrying. You're not just being prepared, you're being realigned with your fitra, the version of you that was clean, clear, and powerful before the world touched you. The version of you that doesn't chase noise, that doesn't over-explain, that doesn't prove worth through productivity, the version of you that remembers Allah without needing to be reminded. So stop trying to fill this space with distractions. Let the silence stay, because this is not just a season, this is the sacred womb of your rebirth. And the next time you come out of this isolation, you won't recognize yourself, but you'll finally feel like yourself. Lesson 6. The pain you're feeling is the price of rebirth. You're asking Allah to heal you, but you don't like what healing feels like. You thought it would be peaceful. You thought it would be warm. You thought it would feel like someone wrapping you in mercy, but instead it feels like your chest is collapsing, like everything inside you is being torn apart, like you're losing pieces of yourself one by one, and you don't know what's left. That's because you're not just healing, you're shedding false identities, shedding emotional addictions, shedding old versions of you that were built in trauma, pain, survival, and people-pleasing. You're not falling apart, you're being remade. And no one talks about this part of transformation. The part where your heart feels like it's betraying itself. The part where you look in the mirror and don't recognize the person staring back. The part where your habits, your friends, your dreams start to feel foreign. Because healing doesn't feel like rising at first. It feels like dying. And that's exactly what it's meant to be. Allah is not just removing the pain. He's removing who you became because of the pain. That smile you wore to keep others comfortable. That "I'm fine" you repeated even when your soul was drowning. That quiet desperation to be needed, even if it meant being used. Those aren't parts of you. They were the armor, and now Allah is burning that armor off, because it's no longer protecting you. It's limiting you, but you have to feel the fire to be free. So when you sit in sujood and your tears won't stop, don't think you're weak. That's the heat of rebirth. That's your old self crumbling. That's the silent scream of a soul that's finally being heard by its creator. You're not crazy. You're awakening. But awakening is violent at first, because the world you built around your numbness starts to collapse. The people who fed on your silence start to leave. The life that made you sick starts to reject you back. And you're left in the in-between, not who you used to be, not yet who you're becoming, just floating. And that floating feels like failure, until you realize it's just freedom without direction. Yet, you don't have to have the answers. You don't need a 5-year plan. You just need to stay close to Allah during this storm. Because while it looks like you're falling apart, in heaven, your name is being rewritten. Not the version of you they remember, not the version of you they needed. The version of you Allah always knew was buried under the survival mode. And that version doesn't chase validation, doesn't explain her worth, doesn't beg to be chosen. That version doesn't just survive. She commands her light. He walks with Allah even if no one walks beside him. But to get to that version, you have to go through the fire, not around it, through it. You have to sit in the pain, feel the loss, question everything. Because only what's real will survive the burning. And when it's over, you won't just heal, you'll return. Return to your fitra, return to your dignity, return to the version of you that doesn't perform, doesn't pretend, and doesn't need to be rescued. Because they finally realized Allah was with them the whole time. So hold on, don't run, don't numb it, don't distract yourself. Let the pain purify you, because every soul that's ever made it to the light first had to walk through the fire. Lesson 7. The separation was the sign, not the failure. You thought it was your fault. When they left, when things ended, when the connection faded without a goodbye, you sat with your head in your hands, going over every word you said, every time you replied late, every moment you didn't smile wide enough, talk soft enough, or love hard enough. You told yourself, if I had just been better, they would have stayed. But the truth is, they weren't taken from you because you failed. They were taken from you because you prayed. You asked Allah for growth. You asked for peace. You asked for purpose. You asked Him to heal your heart, to clean your path, to bring you closer to Him. And He answered. But you didn't recognize the answer because it came as separation, not success. It came in the form of people leaving, doors closing, relationships collapsing, plans you were sure of dissolving into dust. And you called it a punishment. You called it heartbreak. You called it failure, but Allah called it mercy, because here's the truth no one told you. Some people were never part of your future. They were only written into the part of your life where your wounds still made you blind. The moment you started healing, the moment your soul started waking up, the moment you whispered, Ya Allah, I want more of you, they were no longer a match. Not because they were evil, not because you weren't good enough, but because their presence was tied to a version of you that couldn't enter the next chapter. And Allah, in His mercy, pulled you out, or pulled them out, so that your path could be corrected, not corrupted. You didn't fail, you were intercepted, because Allah saw what you couldn't. He saw the heartbreak that would have broken your soul. He saw the future you would have compromised just to keep being loved. He saw how far you were willing to shrink just to stay chosen, and so He intervened. You see, not every loss is loss. Sometimes the biggest rejections are actually divine rescues. The job you didn't get, it would have numbed your spirit. The friend who ghosted you, they were never loyal to your light, only your wounds. The person you cried over in secret for months, they weren't your soulmate, they were your test. And you passed, not by holding on, but by finally letting go. So stop asking, what did I do wrong? Start asking, what is Allah trying to protect me from? Because separation is not always proof of failure. Sometimes it's a sign that you were chosen for something purer, deeper, quieter, something written by Allah alone. And it's in that quiet, after the people leave, after the noise fades, after the closure never comes, that you finally hear what your soul couldn't hear when it was surrounded by noise. You were never forgotten. You were being rerouted. So let the chapter close. Let the memories hurt for a while. Let the old version of you grieve what it wanted. But don't ever think Allah took it because you weren't enough. He took it because you were meant for something more. And what's coming won't need to be chased. It will feel like home. Because it won't compete with your healing. It will protect it. Lesson 8. Not everyone deserves to meet the version of you that Allah is still revealing. There's a version of you that doesn't overthink every message, that doesn't chase people who only see your presence as convenience, that doesn't shrink to keep the peace or water down your light to be tolerated. That version isn't lost, it's just not ready to be revealed yet. Because Allah, the one who sees the soul before it even speaks, is still writing you in secret. And not everyone deserves access to the rough drafts of your rebirth. There are people who want your energy, but not your elevation. They want your comfort, but not your calling. They want to enjoy the fruit of your healing, without ever helping you water the soil. So Allah hides you, not because you're broken, but because you're becoming sacred. You think you're being left out, but really, you're being set apart. There's a reason the people you used to laugh with now feel distant. There's a reason the spaces you once called home now make your soul ache. There's a reason your heart is pulling away, not because it's cold, but because it finally knows where it belongs. And not everyone who met the older version of you is meant to walk beside the one Allah is still forming. Because the truth is, some people were drawn to your wounds, not your wisdom. They stayed close because you didn't know who you were, because you needed them more than you needed direction, because you were easy to shape, easy to drain, easy to love, as long as you stayed small. But now, you're starting to stretch, to speak, to protect your time, to value your prayers more than their opinions. And to them that looks like distance, but to Allah, it looks like alignment. Because the person He's creating in this quiet, painful, divine rebuilding phase is not here to be popular. They're here to be purposeful. That version of you doesn't rush to explain yourself. That version of you smiles from peace, not performance. That version of you isn't impressed by loud voices anymore, only by soft hearts that remember Allah in private. But the world isn't ready for that version, not yet. So Allah keeps you hidden, not to hurt you, but to preserve you. Like rare treasure, like sacred scripture, like light that must first mature in the dark before it's strong enough to shine in public. You are not delayed. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are becoming so powerful that if Allah exposed you too early, they would misunderstand you. They would mishandle you. They would try to rename what only He has the right to define. So He says, not yet. Let them forget you. Let them misread your silence. Let them think you've disappeared. Because when Allah finishes writing the version of you He's preparing in sujood, in heartbreak, in sleepless nights filled with whispered du'as, even your enemies won't recognize you. You will rise without needing revenge. You will smile without needing validation. You will glow without needing to post about it. Because Allah will be enough, and the people who are meant for you, the ones written into the version of your life that begins after your healing, they won't need to be convinced. They'll recognize you without explanation. Because they were written into your qadr after the transformation, not before it. So breathe. The silence is protection. The isolation is preparation. And the delay? That's just how Allah hides what He values most, until the world is finally ready to see it. And even then, only the worthy will be allowed near, because not everyone deserves the version of you that Allah is still revealing. through fire, through sujood, through patience, through him. So breathe. Let the distance grow. Let the silence deepen. Let the unanswered du'as mature into something you can't imagine yet. You weren't meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be aligned with the few dots, the rare, the divinely written souls, who will recognize you, not by your past, but by your light. And until that day comes, stay hidden, stay surrendered, stay in sujood, because Allah is still writing the version of you that even you don't fully see yet.